I never imagined I'd become the kind of man who'd quietly monitor his own wife. But something felt off. At first, I brushed it aside, thinking maybe I was just being paranoid. But the signs kept piling up. Those late nights she claimed were for work, the sudden silence on the phone when I walked into the room, the way her gaze would flick away when our eyes met. All of it started to feed a quiet unease that grew louder each day. Her name was Lily. We'd been together nearly 10 years, married for 6. Ours was a life full of shared dreams, laughter, and those little inside jokes that only make sense to two people deeply in love. But slowly, I began to feel her slipping away. Bit by bit, the woman I knew began to disappear. At first, I tried to ignore it. Told myself it was stress, maybe mine, maybe hers, or perhaps just a voice of insecurity whispering lies. But the weight of that feeling didn't lift. It pressed down on me, day after day, until I found myself doing something I once would have found unthinkable. I installed cameras. Tiny, hidden ones, tucked neatly in the corners of the living room, the kitchen, even the hallway outside our bedroom. I convinced myself it wasn't out of distrust, just a way to silence the noise in my head. I expected to feel foolish when it turned out to be nothing. For a few days, I almost did. Everything seemed normal. Lily came home, made dinner, poured a glass of wine, and curled up on the couch, flipping through her phone or watching her favorite shows. There was nothing suspicious, just the familiar rhythm of our home. And yet, I couldn't shake the guilt. Was I becoming one of those men, the jealous, suspicious type who lets fear rot everything good? I almost talked myself into deleting the footage. Then Thursday arrived. She told me, casually, that she had to work late again. Her tone was light as she kissed me goodbye. I nearly believed her. I was supposed to meet my friend Marcus for drinks that evening, but something in my gut told me not to go. I made an excuse, stayed home, and stared at the live camera feed like it held the answer to every doubt I'd been too afraid to voice. Hours passed. Nothing. Just an empty house bathed in silence. Then, just after 10 p.m., the front door opened. Lily stepped inside, and she wasn't alone. A man followed her in. I didn't recognize him. He was tall, sharply dressed, walked with the kind of confidence that didn't ask permission. Lily didn't flinch. She wasn't startled. If anything, she looked comfortable, as though this wasn't new. Then she smiled. That smile, once mine alone, lit up her face. She led him to the couch. They sat close, too close. His hand brushed her shoulder, and she laughed in that soft, familiar way. Then she leaned in and kissed him. Everything stopped. No anger, no tears, just a cold, paralyzing stillness. I stared at the screen, numb, while everything I believed about our life unraveled in silence. I couldn't look away. Every touch, every laugh, every kiss, it was all once mine. Now it belonged to someone else. And she didn't look ashamed. She looked happy. That night, I must have rewatched the footage a dozen times, searching desperately for a different meaning. But there wasn't one. No misunderstanding. No missing context. Just a harsh, undeniable truth staring back at me. I didn't confront her. I didn't yell or ask for explanations. I just sat in the dark, drowning in the betrayal I hadn't even fully processed yet. The days that followed were a blur. Lily went on as though nothing had happened. She smiled. She talked about weekend plans, future vacations, even children we might have one day. Her words were sweet, but to me they felt like blades disguised as lullabies. I became a ghost in my own home. I smiled when I needed to. I nodded when she spoke. But every glance at her reminded me of what I'd seen. At night, I'd lie awake, listening to her breathing beside me, wondering how long she'd been living this double life, wondering if what we had was ever real. And yet, I kept checking the recordings, not to punish myself, but because some part of me still couldn't accept it. I kept watching the woman I once knew, the woman who used to hold me during my darkest nights. She was the same woman who once spun barefoot with me under dim kitchen lights, laughter in our mouths and love in our eyes. And yet now, she betrayed me so effortlessly, as if those moments had meant nothing. Then came the day everything finally snapped. I came home early, much earlier than she'd expect. As I stepped through the door, I was met with the soft sound of her laughter drifting from the kitchen. Her voice was warm, intimate, loving, even, but it wasn't meant for me. I stood in the hallway, motionless. Her words, playful and gentle, floated through the air as she whispered into her phone. She giggled like a teenager in the throes of new love. And in that instant, something inside me shifted, not in rage, not in sorrow, but in resignation. I was done. That evening, she hummed quietly while preparing dinner, blissfully unaware. It was like she was living in another world, untouched by the chaos she had created. But for me, reality had unraveled. The role I'd been playing, pretending this was survivable, had worn me thin. I walked into the kitchen, calm and steady, like a man walking into a storm he no longer feared. She looked up and gave me that smile, the one that used to make everything feel right in the world, but it held no power over me anymore. "We need to talk," I said, my voice even and distant. She paused, blinking at the unfamiliar tone. "Is something wrong?" "I know, Lily." Her smile cracked. "Know what?" I didn't answer. Instead, I unlocked my phone, opened the save video, and hit play. There it was, her betrayal, plain and undeniable, captured frame by frame. She watched, silent, her complexion draining as the truth unfolded right in front of her. Her lips parted, but she couldn't find the words. When she finally spoke, her voice was paper thin. "It's not what it looks like." I let out a hollow, humorless laugh. "No, Lily, it's exactly what it looks like." That's when her composure shattered. She collapsed at my feet, sobbing uncontrollably, clutching at my leg, begging me to listen. "I'm sorry," she cried. "Please, we can fix this. I still love you." But her voice was just noise to me now. I stared at her, this woman I had once adored, and felt absolutely nothing. "You're not sorry you did it," I said, my tone cold and flat. "You're just sorry I found out." She cried harder, swearing it was a mistake, promising it would never happen again. But the man she married, the man who once believed in her, he was gone. I gently stepped back, removed her hands from me, and stood tall. "Goodbye, Lily." I turned and walked away. Her cries echoed behind me. But I didn't turn around. I felt no fury, no grief, just silence. And in that silence, peace. The kind that only comes when you finally release something that's been quietly killing you. That night, I packed a small bag, just the essentials, and left. No dramatic confrontation, no final speech, just quiet escape. In the days and weeks that followed, she tried to reach out. She called. She messaged. She emailed. I ignored every attempt, not out of anger, but because there was nothing left to say. I found a tiny apartment and started rebuilding my life, piece by piece. It wasn't easy. Some nights, old memories crept in, clawing at the edges of my resolve, but they never lasted long. In their place grew something stronger, clarity. I forgave her, not for her sake, but for mine, because the truth is, when someone betrays you, they don't just destroy the relationship. They fracture the part of you that believed in them. And once that belief dies, there's no resurrection. She didn't lose me the night I discovered the affair. She lost me the moment she decided I wasn't enough. And I found myself the day I realized I always had been. When I finally closed that chapter, truly and completely, I understood something most people never do. Closure doesn't come from apologies or explanations. It comes from walking away and never looking back. She wasn't mourning what she did. She was mourning the loss of a man who would have loved her forever. But by then, I was already gone. I was finished, and that was all I needed.